Good morning, Devils fans. Finally got around to listening to that Jesper Bratt interview on the 32 Thoughts podcast, although I watched the YouTube version, with Elliotte Friedman and Jeff Marek. About a 16-minute interview that is part of a series where Elliotte and Jeff are over in Sweden, so they are obviously interviewing a lot of Swedish players, and that would include Jesper Bratt. So at the top of the interview, they did take a brief moment to just talk about Stockholm as a whole. It is Jesper Bratt's hometown, home city, where he grew up, played a lot of hockey, just kind of talking about local places and the like, before they jumped into the hockey stuff, which is obviously going to be the main focus of this video. So getting to that, Bratt says, in response to asking about his brand new contract, that getting the long-term deal here done was never in any doubt. If you've spoken to me before this, and I think I've even mentioned it in previous videos and on our Devil's Advocates podcast, I never had any doubts either. If you listen to any of his interviews with like Amanda or any of the media, it was always very obvious that his long-term goal was to stay here, and Bratt confirms as such again, I would say, in this interview now that it finally is done. He said that him, his agent, and Fitzy had a good relationship throughout all their different negotiations. I know within the community, Devils fans thought that maybe it was quite contentious, just given the amount of short-term deals that were happening, how deep into the offseason a lot of these negotiations occurred, and just other comments and quotes that would come out from around the league from insiders and people with are supposedly who would have sources in the know. But if you purely looked at what Fitz and Bratt would say when asked about this, it seemed like it was always going to get there eventually. It was just what kind of path was it going to take to get the 8-year deal done, and obviously it did, and we got him locked up, not just through his best years, but on an absolute great, amazing deal, so I wouldn't have had it turn out any other way. Bratt goes on to say that he always wanted to be here. He can see us winning a cup here and wants to be a part of that. Again, I think that is fairly obvious. The team is stacked. We are young, up and coming. We have a massive window to fill in this cup. Now, Bratt says cup here. He was very singular in what he said. I disagree. It is going to be cups, Jesper. I know hockey players obviously know how difficult it is to win even a single cup, let alone multiple. And when you haven't won one before, it's all about winning that first one. So you don't want to get too ahead of yourself, but come on, Jesper. It's going to be multiple. Friedman brings up how some younger players don't enjoy those short-term contracts. They like the long-term stability, and that especially not wanting to do multiple short terms in a row, basically just career stability, risk factor of injuries, etc., having down years, not, if you want to bet on yourself or not. But Bratt said, however, he actually likes that type of contract structure. It puts just that little bit more pressure on him each and every offseason, knowing that, hey, I got to keep playing at my absolute top best because every year is essentially a contract year. He does confirm that each time he took one of those short-term deals, they were discussing long-term deals, but when those talks didn't come to fruition, Bratt was all about the one-year deal. He did go on to say that the years of pressure cooking himself, a little bit of my own words here, paraphrasing, obviously, when I direct quote, I'll let you know, is the short-term deals gave him the ability, like I said, to constantly have to prove himself. It allowed him to build the proper mentality and regiment that since he's done that now for years and years, he knows what he needs to do in his preparation and during the off season to make sure his game is at its absolute top peak, season in and season out. There is no such thing as taking one single workout off or the like. Every single day matters when you're training your regiment. I mean, even Jeff Marek and Elliotte Friedman comment on how great physical condition he is looking like. And I can say from looking at the YouTube video, he definitely looks stockier. Definitely put on at least a little bit of muscle. I'm sure he doesn't want to put on too much, just given the type of game that he plays. But Bratt is looking a bit swole, boys, and it is exciting. A couple of direct quotes from this segment. Quote unquote, I don't view it as an 8-year deal, but instead 8 one-year deals. Again, kind of just calling back to what he said. It's about always going in with the mentality that each and every year you need to be proving yourself again and again, not to get comfortable that you are locked up and you have your bag secured. And, for a guy that is chasing cups with a team that is hungry and chomping at the bit for one, and like I said, multiple, it's a great mentality to have. Next quote. try to make the summers the hardest part so the season actually seems easier. I think that's a great one. I mean, if you absolutely push yourself beyond limits in the summer and you're coming in and even doing those crazy hard NHL practice workouts and off-ice regimen, if you push yourself beyond what he's been in the league for a year now, so he knows what to expect coming in here. If you push yourself harder than they're going to push you here, then you are just going to feel even more rested and ready game in and game out. I think that's even probably something that was instilled in him a bit after his rookie year. I commented on it in my Jesper Bratt spotlight, where his rookie season, he came in, and while he was a shot out of a cannon early on, it was very apparent by the end of this season he was pretty gassed. I commented on it. He just never played that much hockey and traveled like that in his entire life, and it got to him by the end. And I don't think that's obviously been an issue at all for years for him. But I think that definitely helped instill what is needed to succeed here at this league. So you love to see it still here. Now, I would say Bratt is, bona fide veteran at this point on the team. So, him having that mentality is great. And speaking of such, they do spend a large segment of this, and I think rightfully so, talking about Bratt's mental coach, Andrew Schward. Bratt started working with him the summer just before his first training camp with the Devils, and we know the dividends that seem to have paid out there. He always felt like, Bratt commenting on before he started working with his mental coach, that he was always dominant in practices, growing up, even against older guys, even against guys that he thought were better than him on actual ice play. But when he would go into practice, he would just absolutely skate circles around all these guys. But that didn't quite transition to his on-ice play. So he was recommended this mental coach through his agent. He's a guy that actually worked with a lot of goalies. Andrew talks about how goalies are just basically a whole different game. You're standing there at the end of the ice. You're not talking to people. Lots of very high octane to absolute nothingness, back and forth like that. And just how goalie is a very mental position because of all those facets and others. And so Bratt goes on to say that after just one meeting with this guy, it was already clicking for him. That his mental stability and mindset already shifted from just a 2-day meeting. And when he went to his very next practice, he could already tell the improvement in his game just from that and how it all came together. And I don't think it is very far-fetched to say that his crazy ascension from training camp to where he is now in the NHL, and Bratt says it himself, is in large credit to this mental coach. He said that he can't reveal too much about their actual talks and what the process is like, but he does give a little bit of insight into it. He says he writes journals before and after every single game. This goes all the way back to his first preseason game here and everything since. Svart has books of every single one of those from pre and post game notes. Bratt did make it sound like he basically has I want to say a checklist, but basically a run of questions or at least moments to hit on pre and post every single game. And that this mental coach has literal folders or notebooks or binders, whatever it may be, from his rookie year through now, one binder per season. I would love that when Bratt's career is all said and done, hopefully a decade plus from now, that we get a documentary or a book or something that involves all those, because I'm sure there is a ton of insight to be gleaned just reading, game to game, year to year in those. Bratt does talk about as well how he tells young guys that he plays with, especially once he thinks who would get a lot from this, to have a mental coach, if not specifically Andrew, someone else. You got to find the right one for you, and just how much it helps. To me, this speaks volumes about Holtz. We know Bratt and Holtz train basically every single offseason together on ice, especially skating practice. We see videos of them together. They have the same skating coach. We know they're very close together. So it would not surprise me at all if Holtz, if not in part, has full-on gone down this road as well. We talk about Holtz a lot. That's not what this video is about, but high hopes for him as well. Commented on it before. Bratt kind of ends this segment by, again, giving tons and tons of credit to his success for this process that was implemented by his mental coach. When asked about our playoff run, Bratt goes on to say how awesome it was to beat the Rangers, especially how amazing that Game 7 was, how electric the building was, and that it was probably the most fun game he's ever played with, especially winning the series as a whole. The first 2 games, he says the team was playing tight, not knowing exactly what to expect going into a lot of their first playoffs, and really just shot themselves in the foot. Their puck play was junior hockey level, just had too many turnovers, and then obviously the penalties taken, just lapse of judgment, and stuff like that. However, after that, their game plan and mental state changed, and it was those last 5 games, he said, Devils were just the better team, and that our speed and quickness wore the Rangers down. I think that was very evident. They could not keep up with our pace of play at all, at least 5-on-5. And then even when they did get their occasional power play, we shut that down, like I said in the coach video, with just a shift in the scheme around our penalty kill. Following that up, he said that when asked about going into round 2, that the 30-hour turnaround from Game 7 of the Rangers series to Game 1 of Carolina, that they just came in kind of worn out. We're not mentally ready for the drastic shift in style change between playing against the Rangers style to going into the Carolina series. Now, obviously, we played them in the regular season, but it's a bit different when you are game prepping, and heavily prepping in on playing against the Rangers style. And then you're basically on a plane that night over to Carolina, and then you're playing a completely new playoff series against a team that had a bit more rest and time to prep for your game, where you did not have time to prep for theirs. Again, just kind of filling in the blanks here myself a bit. And just that they couldn't get their feet under them, and then by the time they did, Carolina, he goes on to say, was just the better team in this series, and that they deserved to win it. I think that was fairly evident. I don't think Devils fans are really going to argue too much, at least about this particular series. They're a great team. Marek asked if the Devils and Canes are similar, which Bratt says he does agree with, and this is via style of play. I'm not sure I really necessarily agree. Now, while we are both dominant in shots for versus shots against metric, I really don't think we go about it in the same way at all. But hey, if Bratt says he agrees to at least to some extent, who am I to argue with him? But I just don't think we're stylistically similar to Carolina at all. I really just think the metrics tend to play out because we're both puck dominant, because we're both just very good teams. But not the way that we go about that, I think, is just very different. Bratt calls the Canes the most structured to their system in the league. Guys stick with it. They don't break from that, and thus it is very difficult to play against their style when there is no kinks in that armor. He says the similarities of speed, forechecking, and back-checking are there, which I'll agree with to an extent, although I think their forechecking game, and then the way they cycle up to the point and then shoot from their defenseman priority is very different from how we go about our offense. But, sure. Maybe a little bit. I think we're a lot faster. I think we back check better, although they definitely do that as well. I think they forecheck better, but I think we are much better on the rush and use our forwards a lot more than they do, where they use their defensemen a lot more than we do, even if we definitely activate our defensemen a lot, especially guys like Dougie, and of course coming in with Luke as well. I'm sure that'll be a big part of our game. He looks at our team and what our top guys can do, just talking about how dominant the Carolina team is, and just how excited he is about showing our game to the league once again, and really just wants to show what we can do, and boy, do I agree. Obviously, talking about our top guys, Marek and Elliotte go on to transition to asking about Jack and Nico. So Bratt kind of talks in length about both of them, and I'm going to give you a bit of a spark note, starting off with Nico. So he says, Nico is unreal with the puck. Absolutely insane hockey IQ and hockey sense. Very rarely makes mistakes. If there's a chance to get the puck on your stick, Nico will always get it there. He's always in the right spot on the ice, including in the O-zone. And while obviously the league as a whole has the top defensive forward storyline going for Nico, Bratt hypes up his offensive game as well, talking about how great he is in the net front and in the corners, how great his shot is, especially from that mid-range. He doesn't get enough credit for his offense, especially given how many minutes come from playing on the penalty kill and D-zone draws. So, obviously you look at overall points when you're talking about the top offensive guys, and then you can also look at how many minutes are they getting to actually get the opportunity to put up those points, how many come from the power play, how many are 5-on-5, what's their deployment like, etc., etc. And when you put Nico into that conversation and you look at how much he starts and plays on the defensive end and still puts up that 80-point season, yeah, I mean, Nico is here, and I think he's going to do even better, and obviously Bratt is confident in that as well. Going on to talk about Jack, I mean, you can just see him glowing about just the skill and how much fun it is to watch Jack. He said he is so exciting to play with, being able to watch him every day in practice and in games. His flow, skating, stick handling, I mean, being able to find the lanes that Jack finds, finding the fastest lane to the net. But really where he goes on, I think hypes Jack up, is calling him a magician on the ice. How when you give him the puck, you don't even have to care about him anymore or needing to worry about covering for Jack, because you just give him the puck and you go find an open lane. He says you don't even look back at him because you just know he's going to handle himself and he's going to find you with the puck regardless, or just do it all himself anyway. And when you're talking about a guy like that, being able to have that much confidence, it really just makes you even better. And we all know that that's what Jack does to everyone he plays with on the ice. He says both guys make you better, and you just got to find your ice out there with them, and they will get you the puck. And that's it. High praise, high praise for both our centers, but we know how elite both those guys are. Finally, to round it out, they ask, is it a cup or bust season? Bratt says, he doesn't really think of it that way. That's just unnecessarily added pressure. It's so hard. Only one team does it year in and year out, and there's so many good teams in the NHL. And how, we're, in his words, we're still kind of far away, only having just made the second round, but we're on the right path. I agree with Bratt to an extent here, but I think really a team can go from a first or second round exit to winning a cup the very next year, and I think we have the pieces to do that. Is this our year? It could be. But I think we have very, very many years to win very, very many cups, and I am positive this core wins more than one. But that's it. That's where they ended out their interview, and that's really where I'm going to end out this video. I will have a link to the full interview in the description here. It's not going to be a hyperlink because, again, we're still a fairly new YouTube channel here. We don't have all the credentials to get those hyperlinks in our descriptions yet. But copy and paste, go check it out. Bratt looks like a stud. So even if it's just to go look at his beautiful face, it's a great way to spend your Sunday. I hope you all, like I had mentioned yesterday, have tomorrow off for the holiday. If not, enjoy the end of your weekend or enjoy the middle of it for the rest of you. That does it for today. I will see everyone tomorrow morning, as always, and forever. Let's go Devils.